Welcome to Martial Arts World Radio. I'm your host, Joseph Clark. Thanks for tuning in. Each week in every episode of this show, we speak to sensational fighters from the UFC, Olympic martial arts medalists, and world champions who are icons, legends, and pioneers of combat sports, many of whom have gone on to become stars of martial arts cinema. I have a book to bring to your attention. Check out The 36 Strategies of Martial Arts by Hiroshi Muraya, a book that can be applied to fighting, business, or life in general. Also, be sure to check out our website, our show website, at www.mawradio.com, which is full of value for our listeners. This week's inspirational quote is frequently preached by the Navy SEALs, and it goes as follows, plain and simple: the more you sweat in training, the less you bleed in combat. Navy SEALs.
Hi, I'm Don the Dragon Wilson, and you're listening to Joseph Clark at Martial Arts World Radio.
Patrick the Animal Williams is a bantamweight fighter in the UFC. With the majority of his wins coming from strikes, he is quickly demonstrating that he really brings it to each fight and leaves it all in the octagon. Speaking to us from Homestead, Florida, Patrick Williams. Patrick, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Patrick, walk us through when you got the initial call from the UFC offering you your first fight. How did that go down?
Boy, that first call, for me, it was unexpected. I was thinking that I was going to have to do 3 or 4 more fights. I just came off of a spectacular win over a black belt from American Top Team. And I remember I couldn't get a fight for 6 months, and I was lazy and ended up not training. So I've been off the mat, wasn't training for 6 months, and all of a sudden my agent calls me out of nowhere, and they ask me. Well, they tell me first. They was like, "Hey, we have some news, and some good news and bad news. The good news is we got you a fight for the UFC." So in my head, I'm thinking, what type of bad news can there be from that?
That's right.
And they told me it was in 2.5 weeks, and it's at 135 pounds.
Oh, boy.
So there was a big surprise for me. I had to pretty much jump on the scale from that point on and get my weight off. I was almost 170 pounds, not training for 6 months, and that was pretty much my preparation.
Patrick, how is fighting in the UFC different from fighting in other fight promotion organizations?
It's the difference between going to elementary and going to a huge university. It's totally different. The amount of people that's there, the way the promotion is ran, it's top notch.
And I mean, you must be encountering all sorts of people, Dana White and other fighters that you've been watching up until now, maybe even some fighters that have been inspirations for you. There must be times where you're in absolute awe.
Yes, there's definitely times where I'm in awe. But right now I'm at the point where everything is kind of settled in, and now I'm looking at focusing my energy and my time on making people become in awe of me when they see me, trying to be that diamond in the sport.
Well said, well said. Now, I do have to ask, I'd like you to share 2 experiences with us. One of them is the bad news, one of them is the good news. So let's get the bad news out of the way first. Walk us through the experience of getting knocked out by a flying knee. That was Chris Beal, UFC 172. Just, could you walk us through that a little bit?
Okay. All right, a little history class. That fight, from the beginning of the fight, it was kind of hectic. I didn't get my gloves on until minutes before I went out. Didn't get to warm up. I had the jitters. And like I said, I previously didn't train for 6 months.
Sure.
So when I walked out there, everything went smooth. I was trying to get the feel of the match.
Okay.
Took him down real easy, took him down again, and at the end of the first round, he pushed off of my head, and his fingers went knuckles deep in my eyes. And from that point, I was the match kind of switched for me. I was pretty much running away because I couldn't see. I was blind in both of my eyes, and that right there, I think, was probably more brutal than a knockout because to me in my head, I was thinking, you know, I finally make it to the UFC and I'm on the big stage and I can't see.
Sure.
So I go back to my corner and I tell my coach, hey, what's wrong with my eyes? I can't see. I guess because of the adrenaline, I wasn't paying attention. So I remember going out in the second round, and I remember stooping down because I couldn't see him. It was like looking underwater. And I was waiting to grab him so I can take him to the ground and try to finish the fight there. And I guess as he touched my arms, I moved my head in, and he placed a perfectly timed flying knee. And it just gave me a quick flash knockout. As soon as I landed, I woke up. I knew what happened. But it was bittersweet. But I made sure that my next fight, I was going to be more than prepared.
Exactly. And you won a TKO decision over Sebastian Angel in which you broke his jaw. Tell us a little bit about that victory.
Yeah, that was a crazy fight. I remember they couldn't find an opponent, and they ended up finding someone that's been training. I think it was like 2 weight classes up, and he was just huge. And I remember my coaches looking over and was asking me, you know, you think we should do this? This guy is like huge. But I went ahead and I believed in my skills. I went out there, and just my movement and fluidity was hard for him to keep up with. And I believe I caught him with a knee that dropped him. And I think his jaw was broken in early on in the fight. But as we were going, I remember the 10-second belt, the 10-second knock go off, and I just followed him down and kicked him straight to the jaw. So between the knee and the kick, I don't know which strike broke his jaw.
Patrick, at what age did you get into martial arts?
You know, I've always been a big believer in becoming a ninja. I guess all the kids when they're younger, you know, they want to be a ninja.
Sure.
Growing up in the 80s, you know, watching Bruce Lee, they were always my idol. I always looked up to them. So I was always trying to train and become faster, stronger, cat-like abilities. So I think that right there planted the seeds to me becoming who I am today.
And tell us about Arizona State University.
Big school, party school, number one party school in the nation at the time I went there.
What degree did you get?
What's that?
What degree did you get?
I ended up getting a sociology and family studies degree. I wrestled there as well, D1. Ended up placing for nationals 2 times. I wrestled with C.B. Dalloway, Ryan Bader, Cain Velasquez, also Clifford Starks, Aaron Simpson, who was my coach, Tom Ortiz, who was my coach as well, and just a whole list of other top athletes, John Moraga. And after I graduated, I seen these guys, you know, performing well in mixed martial arts. So I figured that I can come and get my piece of the pie in this sport as well.
Sociology, I find that very interesting. Family studies. Why family studies?
Well, coming from a home where, you know, family is always important, but you always see those family struggles. And then growing up, knowing that I made it and seeing a lot of other troubled youths that end up in gangs, drug abuse, and veering off the path of life, I figured I can somewhat give something back to them, maybe share my story or have something to maybe one day turn a troubled youth into a future UFC star.
Now, you said other troubled youths. Were you a troubled youth?
No, my grandma did well at raising me. I was raised by my grandma. She did a good job. You know, from her, I seen her. I grew up and took witness to her hard work and dedication. and that kind of helped me stay on the right path.
Patrick, why were you raised by your grandma?
Well, at a young age, my mom, she had her little problems going through life, and I actually had a problem as well when I was a baby. For some reason, the doctors couldn't find a way to have me keep calories in.
Okay.
And the doctors pretty much said that was going to be it for me, that there was nothing else they can do. They formulated a lot of formulas so I can gain weight, but none of it worked. So my father, he ended up giving me to my grandmother, and she's Jamaican. And I was raised by her, and she fattened me up real nice.
I'm sorry that you had to go through that. Your grandmother sounds like an amazing woman.
She was great.
Do you still
hardworking immigrant?
A hardworking immigrant.
Yep.
Do you still have a relationship with your parents?
I see my relationship got better with my mom as I've gotten older, and my father, I speak to him every now and then. Right now he's in Jamaica. Been planning a trip to go see him and do some fatherly bonding with him as well, father-son bonding.
And did you have any siblings, or were you an only child?
Oh, my mom had 10 kids. I was number 2 in line, and my dad had 5.
Very, very interesting. And do you think this contributed to your choice of a degree when you decided to take sociology and family studies?
Maybe subliminally, it may have. But I'm all about helping out and trying to bring out the best in everyone.
Patrick, what's your relationship like with your siblings? Do you keep in touch with these other 10 siblings, or these other 9 children in the family?
Well, actually, this year, 2 months ago, I've met one of my brothers that I've never met before. It was great. It was an amazing moment. And hopefully soon I'll unite with all my with a couple of my other brothers that I have yet to see.
And at Arizona State University, you wrestled with Clifford Starks. Clifford Starks has been a guest on this show, another UFC fighter.
Yep. Cliff the Big Red Dog. Great guy. Amazing guy.
He is an amazing guy. Patrick, who has been your toughest opponent to date in your fight career?
Oh, that's a good question. I think my toughest opponent has been myself. Losing a couple of fights where I felt I shouldn't have lost. As far as toughest fight, I believe all my fights were somewhat easy. They ended up like one fight I ended up getting knocked out. One I ended up getting choked, but there were more from my mistakes.
Sure.
So it's hard to say.
Does a UFC fighter have much time for a social life?
Well, I'm beginning one myself. I'm actually going to be working soon and fighting, trying to juggle both, and juggle being a father and my social life as well.
Congratulations on being a father. So what are your future plans? What are your hopes and dreams and your goals?
Well, right now in the short term, it's to heal up and hopefully get back in the octagon as soon as possible. I'm looking at towards the beginning of 2017. I really want to make 2017 my year. I have a lot to show the fans, and I'm ready to convince them to spend their hard-earned cash to come watch me display my arts. And I look forward on dominating at hopefully multiple weight classes. Right now I'm shooting for 125 and 135. If that goes well, I'll shoot up to 145 and 155.
Patrick, our final question for you for this evening. It always goes by very, very quickly, but before we bring our interview to a close, any advice for our listeners who have hopes to one day fight in the UFC?
Biggest advice I can give you is keep believing in your art go into the gym every day, go through all of your stuff with a fine-tuned comb, a fine tooth comb, and sharpen up on your skills, and continually to believe that you have what it takes, and eventually one day you're going to break through. If it's not today, it'll be tomorrow. If it's not tomorrow, it'll be next year. And surrounding yourself with positive people in the gym that's going to help you strive to become the best, and watch a lot of film.
Patrick, we must bring this interview to a close. I appreciate your time today, and I'm grateful for your insights. All the best to you, and thanks again for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
This has been an interview with UFC fighter Patrick Williams.
Hi, I'm Bob Wall, a World Full Contact Karate Champion, and I'm the co-star of Enter the Dragon. You're listening to Martial Arts World Radio.
Our next guest is Anthony DeLongis. He is a martial artist, especially gifted in swordsmanship. He is an actor, fight director, weapons specialist, horseman, writer, Wild West performer. I could go on. He is much, much more. He was a regular on Star Trek Voyager and the Highlander series. A martial artist and weapons master in several disciplines. He played a swordsman opposite Jet Li in the 2006 martial arts epic Fearless, and gave Harrison Ford extensive bullwhip training for the 2008 film Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. He also taught Michelle Pfeiffer how to use the bullwhip for her role as Catwoman in the 1992 film Batman Returns. He co-starred and fought Patrick Swayze in the film Roadhouse, and his TV and film resume could take up the next 20 minutes, so we're just going to skip to the chase and get into this two-way discussion and see where it takes us. Anthony, welcome to Martial Arts World Radio.
Thank you, Joseph.
Now, Anthony, I'm going to begin by looking through some highlights of your resume. Mythbusters helped teach Adam and Jamie how to use a bullwhip to test the Indiana Jones myths. That must have been fun.
Oh, it was a good time. The Indiana Jones stories had inspired all of us, particularly Jamie and I. And Jamie had, for a long time wanted to do this, and he made his own bullwhip. Actually, he called me up and said, could we do this? Could you swing on a whip? And I said, well, not my whip. But he had gone to meet David Morgan, who had made whips for the previous films, and learned how to make one, and he had put together quite a good one. And then they had me in to check and see, could you really disarm somebody with, a bullwhip? And yes. Could you really, wrap that around a tree and swing on it? Would it support your weight? If you throw it right, you can get the whip to lock, and yes, it will support your weight. And they had me back to do some high skills accuracy stuff. Like one of the producers held a wine glass, and I cut through it with the whip. The tip of the whip goes 768 miles per hour.
Wow!
Man-made tool to break the sound barrier. It dates to 3000 BC in both the Chinese and Egyptian culture. So it's been one of my passions for a long time.
Deadliest Warrior in 2009, member of Team William Wallace. Tell us about that.
My buddy, Dave Baker, who is now starring on Forged in Fire. He's the good-looking judge with the mustache and the vest. He's a very fine smith. Former actor who became a wonderful weapons maker. He's been making weapons for me for, probably a good 25 years. He took over in the beginning of season 1 and then was the weapons master for season 2 and season 3. He was making all the historical weapons, many of which hadn't been seen outside of a museum in hundreds of years. And I was the guest expert with William Wallace. They were starting to work with some pretty dangerous weaponry, and they could see the hazards of it, so they went, we better have somebody who knows what they're doing. And the Wallace sword's over 4 feet long. It was razor sharp on both sides. One of the things I'm proudest of, it's on my website, which is myname.com, DeLongis.com. On the Swordmaster section, you'll see me cut through, it's 3 heads that are mounted on pork loin. And before the test, I said to Dave, how many of these do we have? And he said 1. So basically, failure wasn't an option, and I had to be sure to be able to execute. And then in season 2 and season 3, my horses were the sharp weapons test horses. Basically, I'd rehearse the horses to do what they were going to have to do on set, and make sure that the performers were going to be up to the task, where they didn't get to ride my horses with sharp weapons. And so I got to contribute with the show. It was a lot of fun.
Anthony Roadhouse, you worked with Patrick Swayze and I believe Benny the Jet Urquidez, correct?
Yes, I did. Well, Benny is, of course, a legend, and rightly so.
He is.
A master in the ring. He was tapped to train Patrick, and Patrick being a dancer, Benny was very smart. He trained him to music. And then Patrick and we got to face off 4 times in the film, 3 of which make it into the film. There's one whole fight going on while Sam Elliott is fighting Marshall Teague, where I'm fighting Patrick right next to Ben Gazzara. But I guess they thought that I'd gotten my butt kicked enough, so only 3 of my 4 fights made it into the film.
And the movie The Sword and the Sorcerer, 1982, a barbaric medieval type of film. I remember it. I was amazed when I saw that you were in that.
Thank you. Yeah, a lot of people are. It was my last ingenue. I think I was 32 at the time. Please don't do the math. And I had a good time. They gave me a stick to work with, but at that point I had well over a decade of fencing training, and also I was Taekwondo. Only when I did Circle of Iron with David Carradine, I was a brown belt, and then I moved on up to red belt before going on to train with Guradan and Asanto for over a decade.
And you have worked with Harrison Ford, Jet Li, Michelle Pfeiffer, Charlton Heston, Ron Howard, Bo Derek. Give me some more stars you've worked with.
Well, let's see. Richard Chamberlain, I did his Cyrano de Bergerac. Got me my equity card back in '74. I trained him. He did a great job. I played the Vicomte de Valverde, where they have the famous duel in rhyme that opens the play, and basically gives Cyrano his credibility as a swordsman. I'm very proud of that piece of choreography. And fun thing was, we went 11 weeks. He had one little bobble in an early pre-opening performance, and then was just nailed it every night. And then a year went by, and he called me up, and there used to be a show called the Dinah Shore Show. He said, "I'm going to be on that. Can we put you in the audience, and you'll come up, and I'll pretend to teach you fencing?" And he did, and then we launched into our very exciting finale with the kill. And I hadn't seen him in a year, and in about 15 minutes of rehearsal, he remembered everything I taught him. It was great.
He remembered it all, did he?
I worked with Christian Kane as well. Christian, it was Secondhand Lions, a movie I'm very proud of. I did all the flashback sword action for that. They wanted to have a Technicolor, Mark of Zorro, Robin Hood sort of feel to it. I can do that. And Christian Kane played the young Robert Duvall in all the flashback seasons. So I trained him, and he did a terrific job in the film. And then about 2 years later, he was starring on a show called Leverage, and they wanted to give his character, he was going to be introduced as the muscle, and they needed to show an opponent. Well, basically the story is we are so evenly matched, nobody can get an advantage. So we had this sequence in a location kitchen, so we couldn't break anything, and we did double weapons, and he did a found weapon with a pan off of the stove to defend himself against the knife and cleaver. And I had about 45 minutes to put that together, and it was a 5-phrase fight, and we shot it as a master, start to finish every time, which very few people can do in this business, and Christian did terrific. They actually cut it up to go into the show because they were having things happen simultaneously, but we shot it as a master every time.
Anthony, what martial arts styles are you formally trained in?
Well, my first martial art was European fencing, and I had one of the greats, Maestro Ralph Faulkner. He was a 2-time Olympian. He was the sword master to the stars and did pictures like The Original Prisoner of Zenda, and The Court Jester, and a long list of others. I trained with him for about a dozen years. I trained with Master Young Gil Kim in Korean Taekwondo. Made it to a red belt level there, but it wasn't the best style for me. I was never that great a kicker, and I felt like there was some holes in my martial arts so I had heard about Dan Inosanto and went and
Sure.
started taking class with him that went on for nearly a dozen years. And the two great teachers in my life to that point were Maestro Faulkner and Dan Inosanto. They have affected everything I've done ever since. They're with me. And because of them, I was able to create my unique whip system.
What weapons are you trained in?
Now I'm studying. Now I'm studying Shunkendo under Kaizen Toshishiro Obata, who is the founder of the system, and my sensei is Matthew Lynch. And I still continue with my European swordplay and continue to teach that too.
So you're still training today?
Oh, always. I have a little mantra that kind of keeps me going and say, if I'm not getting better, I'm just getting older, and there's only one of those I can do anything about. So I consider this a
You and me both.
progress, although I've been doing bladed weapons some 44 years and counting.
Yeah, what weapons are you a master in?
Well, the only one I would claim real mastery over is the bullwhip, because I created a system that is unique, and that was because of my fencing background and because of my work with Dan Inosanto with multiple angles. And I looked on the blade as a supersonic telescopic. I had the whip as a supersonic telescopic blade. I couldn't find anybody to teach me, so I taught myself. And I went, everybody works way too hard. The whip goes 768 miles per hour. It makes a big noise, but that's where most people stop. And I was looking at it for, how can I be more efficient? How can I be more accurate? So I utilized the martial arts principles of minimal effort for maximum return. A small amount of focused energy can produce explosive results, and the whip is the perfect metaphor for that. So I align the whip early, and it forms a loop. And my rolling loop system actually stabs rather than slashes. So I'm hitting at 700 miles plus per hour, something that's the size of a quarter. So from long range, I'm very formidable. And then medium range and close range, I also have options, thanks again to my work with bladed weapons, European bladed weapons, and Japanese bladed weapons, and Filipino bladed weapons. And then close range, it becomes like a baton with a submission element to it. And also, I can use it to tie people up with, too. So pretty much anything you've studied will find very eloquent voice in the whip if you learn to listen.
And that's a lot of energy focused on a small area. Anthony.
Well, it's also a lot of responsibility, and I take that very seriously.
It is. It is.
One of the things I'm proudest of, again, it's on my website. When I was on More Extreme Marksman, I actually cut targets out of my partner's hand, first on the ground, and then as we passed at full gallop in opposite directions with the tip of the whip. And to have a horse trust you that much, I take that responsibility very seriously, for both my equine and my human partners.
Now, Anthony, this goes by very, very quickly. We're coming up to our last 3 minutes here. You run a training facility on your ranch for those wishing to learn to improve their action hero skills. Tell us about that training facility.
Well, people come from all over the country, all over the world, really, to train with us there. I teach all the European weapons, broadsword, saber, rapier and dagger, small sword. I teach the Filipino double sticks and, double-bladed weapons. I teach knife fighting and throwing. I'm in the Black Belt Hall of Fame. I'm in the USA Martial Arts Hall of Fame. I'm in the Knife Throwers Hall of Fame as well. And then I teach whip, of course, and I teach work on horseback. And we have archery and knife and tomahawk throwing. We get I just had my student from Paris for his 4th time coming back to train with me. And we have the Australian Sun Academy in for 9 years in a row. So I get everybody from professional martial artists to professional performers to people who just want to try an adventure. And we welcome everybody.
Anthony, the URL to your website is what?
www.DeLongis.com. That's DELONGIS.com.
And Anthony, we must wrap up. I thank you for an intriguing interview. Just scratching the surface. We hope you will come back. We should get you and Richard Norton on the same night, although I don't know if we'd have enough time. But I sincerely hope you'll join us again.
It would be fun. There's a lot of things I can talk about that I think your martial arts listeners will be very interested in.
Well, we're very interested in having you back. Thanks again for your time today.
My pleasure, and thank you all, and please come visit the website. Let us hear from you.
You've been listening to an interview with martial artist, actor, and fight coordinator Anthony DeLongis.
This is Olivier Gruner. You are listening to Martial Arts World Radio with Joseph Clark.
FREDIA the Cheetah Gibbs, nicknamed the most dangerous woman in the world, is a sports icon and Muay Thai kickboxing legend. Gibbs is a 3-time world champion in kickboxing and the first African-American female to hold the World Kickboxing Championship for the International Sport Karate Association. She had a professional kickboxing record of 16 wins, 1 draw. Then she transitioned to professional boxing, where she had a record of 9 wins, 2 losses. She also co-starred in the film Knockout, and she starred as herself opposite Will Smith on an episode of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. FREDIA, what a privilege for us to welcome you to the show. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Joe. I appreciate it. I'm excited to be on the show. How are you?
I'm well. We're excited to have you on this show. Now, FREDIA, tell us about your fight with Valerie Henning.
About that fight with Valerie Henning. That's a good one. Yeah, Valerie Henning, she's from France, and she was considered the most dangerous woman in the world. She was coming to America to do her American debut, and she wanted to fight the toughest woman in Northern America, and they found me. We fought on pay-per-view in front of about 1 or 2.5 million people. Obviously, I was the underdog, and I knocked her out in the 3rd round. That was pretty exciting. That's when I made history.
That is pretty exciting, and that is history-making. What a feeling that must have been.
I can't even describe it, Joseph. I mean, it was something that I never expected, but it happened. It was just an unbelievable, just a phenomenal feeling. That's the only thing that I can say. I'll never forget it.
Please share your experience with us working with Will Smith on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. You didn't knock him out.
Yeah, I did knock Will out. You know, threw him around. I didn't knock him out, but I threw him around a little bit. Yeah, he and I had known Will back in Philadelphia prior to him coming to Los Angeles. But, we connected, and we worked together on the show, Boxing Helena, for, 2 weeks. So it really gave us a chance to bond, and then we went ahead and produced the show, and it was pretty fun working the gym scene with him and Alonzo. It was cool.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Chester, Pennsylvania, Fairground Projects. Yeah, in Chester, PA. Absolutely.
How did you discover that you wanted to be a kickboxer?
Well, that's a very good question. It happened by, let's say, accident. And I wouldn't even say accident, but I grew up in the Fairground Projects, and in fact, I wrote a book. But I was bullied a lot as a young kid, real young, and skinny, and I was running a lot from them. But to make a long story short, my uncle he was a master in a martial arts school called Quiet Storm, and he came and got me. He heard that I was being bullied. He came and got me. He said, "Listen, we're going to take you to the martial arts school, and we're going to build your self-confidence and self-esteem." And I want to know what does that mean, self-confidence? What does self-esteem mean? So, he gave me a dictionary, found out self-confidence is freedom from doubt, believe in yourself and your abilities, okay? So that was pretty cool to focus on while working on the techniques. But, that's how it all came about, building self-confidence. And then next thing I know, I'm sparring with all these guys, and at a very young age, and they made me really, really, really good. They really made me really, really good.
As a young woman entering combat sports back in that era, what were some of the challenges you faced?
Some of the challenges during that era, I think, in karate I fought a lot, but in kickboxing, I fought a lot as well. I think basically just being a black female in a male-dominated sport, mixed martial arts, was one of the challenges that I had encountered. But it gave me the opportunity to break color barriers, and not only that, but training with the guys all the time, and being the only female, it also gave me the opportunity to become number one in the world.
And you just remarked, you said a black female in that era. So was it enough of a challenge to be a female, but was it additionally a challenge because you were a black female?
Yeah, it was. I didn't think so, but, because I don't think that way, because my great-grandma, she's Caucasian, but it just happens, and, that's it. And it's pretty cool because also breaking color barriers, Joseph, it gave me the opportunity to be the first to open up doors for young African-American men and females and others, of course, and let them know that, it can be done. It can be done. That makes sense?
It makes perfect sense. So, FREDIA, we're going to get to present time in a moment, but this is just great stuff. Take us back to your very first kickboxing match. Walk us through the experience, the emotions, the excitement. What was that like?
Wow, okay, yeah, I'll never forget that. Jeez Louise, I was in the locker room, and all of a sudden something swarmed over me. I don't know if it was energy, nerves, or whatever, but I just remember entering and don't remember anything after that but leaving.
Are you serious?
I'm telling you, but I saw photos. That's it. I just literally, I don't know. But that was my very first kickboxing experience ever.
What was the outcome?
The outcome? Oh, I won.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good, because it kind of sounded like you got knocked out the way you described it, but I didn't think you had, so I had to ask.
Joseph, keep in mind, my record was 16-0 with one draw, and the one draw was against a guy, but it was 16-0 with 15 knockouts, okay? So that's how, remember, I did beat the most dangerous woman in the world. Remember that, okay? So you don't earn those kind of titles by losing.
No, you don't. Do you prefer kickboxing or boxing?
I prefer kickboxing. Reason being, and I prefer kickboxing today, mixed martial arts. I'm a mixed martial artist, period. It is what it is compared to boxing. Mixed martial arts, it makes perfect sense. When we're in war, when we're combating, why should we only use two weapons? When we're combating, we are supposed to use all of our weapons. That makes sense?
That makes perfect sense. Have you ever had to use your fighting skills in the street?
Yeah, I have. And, what's interesting, I never, ever start anything. I don't. But, there has come a few times where I had to, close it, shut it down. Yes, I did, at a club. I'll never forget my buddy and I, Shuki Rosenberg. We were at this party watching this band, and, someone came along, a group of girls came along, and I called myself stepping aside to allow them to go ahead and pass by, and one of them took my seat.
Uh-oh, bad move.
I know, that's what Shuki said. I was like, excuse me. She was like, not anymore, not your seat anymore. Wow.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So,
oh, boy. What is it if these street brawls start from the pettiest things?
Yeah, I know. It's unfortunate.
It is.
But, and what gets me is, like, for example, Joe, you're a martial arts yourself.
Yes.
If people know that you are a tough behind, you are tough, you are a deadly weapon, why would you want to test somebody that you can't beat? Like, for example, Mike Tyson, me.
Yep, silly.
You have people out there who just want to test you.
So let's change direction for a moment. Let's talk about your radio show.
Okay, well, yeah, it is in Los Angeles. It's I just launched a radio show. It's called The World of Sports Sports and Entertainment with CHEETAH, and basically, it's geared toward athletes, obviously, sports and various different sports, not just martial arts, but I mean boxing and boxing and golf and track and field and wrestling and different things like that. So I just wanted to be just sports in general. But it's great to be able to interview, these young kids growing up, this new breed of hustlers growing up and about to step into the championship world, and also to interview the champions who are in the world and, are just able to become role models and leaders for these up-and-coming stars,
And FREDIA, you've got video. So first of all, do you have a website for the show?
Yeah, I do have a my Twitter page and my Facebook page at this particular point in time, that's the website for the show.
Okay.
It's World of Sports World of Sports with Cheetah.
World of Sports with Cheetah.
That's the Facebook page there.
Okay. And then you have video on YouTube as well, I believe, don't you? Or you have
correct.
video feeds from your show?
World of Sports with Cheetah, FREDIA GIBBS, on YouTube. That's where we are. Yep.
Okay, so World of Sports with Cheetah. Look for it on YouTube as well. FREDIA, I understand that you were inducted into a Hall of Fame recently. Would you share that with us?
Oh, yeah. Wow. Absolutely. In my hometown, Chester, PA,
Okay.
2016 Hall of Fame. The 440 relay team at my hometown, my high school, we had broke a track and field record that stood for 108 years at Penn Relays. And I don't know if you are aware of Penn Relays, but Penn Relays is you got to Google it. It's a place where all the great runners in the world come together in Philadelphia. They have them in each state. Come together in Philadelphia, and we compete against each other. But so this was really something unbelievable, the magnitude. We didn't even realize the magnitude until years later. But we broke a record that stood for 108 years at Penn Relays, and we won gold medals. And they inducted us yesterday in Conkerville, Pennsylvania, into the Hall of Fame, in addition to the other girls on the team. So that was pretty cool. Chester High School Hall of Fame athletic program. That was really nice of them.
Congratulations. That is really nice of them and well-deserved.
Yeah, thank you very much. Oh, yeah, absolutely. No doubt. I appreciate that.
FREDIA, has being a fighter affected your romantic relationships?
You can sort of, not really. You know, being an athlete, you can get what you want, when you want, and how you want it. You know, it's just real easy. Things are accessible.
And did you ever go through an ego phase where you let the victories go to your head, or where you were humbled, or did you always maintain your humility through your fight career?
Yeah, I've always maintained my humility, the majority, at least 99.9% of the time. But I have had an opportunity to have a couple wake-up calls. And I'll never forget, it was Yvonne Trevino. For some reason, we were fighting in kickboxing in Simi Valley. And for some reason, that was my fight before Valerie Henning. So I was really fired up, and I was all in her face talking stuff, and she just stood and looked at me. And she almost knocked me out in the first round. I tell you, she really beat me up that first round. That was a real wake-up call.
That was a wake-up call, was it?
Yeah. After that fight, Joseph, I've always been humble, and it's always the best way because you never know.
FREDIA, did you experience many injuries throughout your career?
Yeah, I did in boxing. More so in boxing where I encountered the injuries, and primarily with my hands, because
is that right?
You can't mix it up, hands and feet, and knees and elbows. So you're constantly injuring your hands. So yeah, in boxing, I had a fight against Samaya Nani. And Samaya Nani is one of the girls who destroyed Christy Martin. She beat the mess out of Christy Martin. And I fought Samaya, and Samaya put a couple girls in comas too, Joseph, just so you know.
No kidding.
Yeah, for real. But she and we fought on ESPN. I had injured my hands prior to the show. I should not have taken a show. That would have been a better executive decision, but I did it because I had already committed and I didn't want to let anybody down.
Sure.
Maya and we fought, and I punched her one time. Everything got black, and that was it. I just decided to call the fight off. But yes.
Do you have any advice for our listeners on how to train through the injuries or heal, without losing their edge?
The best advice that I could give is, one, if you're injured, take care of the injury and focus on conditioning. And, allow that injury to, be at least 100%. Do not go into a fight injured, period. Never, ever. It's worth postponing it and going in there 100%, then taking it and making a fool out of yourself, period.
What have you learned inside the ring that you've used in everyday life?
There's this quote that I borrowed from my class president back in, her name is DeShonta Phillips, but she used to always say, and it just stuck in my head, and now it's stuck in my soul. It's, if someone says it can't be done, smile, and then reply, maybe it can't, but I won't be the one to say so until I've tried.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you for sharing that. FREDIA, we're coming up to the top of the hour, so I have one more question before we close off and wrap up. Would you please share an example of an especially challenging experience which you had to persevere through, and what was learned?
Oh, geez, man. That all started with childhood. Just being in the household with my mom and my dad and his infidelity, and me witnessing that, and
I'm sorry.
Being able to overcome that and move on. That was a challenge within itself.
That was a challenge within itself. FREDIA, we have arrived at the end of our time. Thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations on your fight career and accomplishments, and I wish you continued success with your radio show.
Thank you very much, Joseph, and I wish you the best as well. Take care. Peace, love, and happiness, everyone. Thanks for listening.
And thank you. This has been an interview with the most dangerous woman in the world, world champion kickboxer, professional boxer, and radio host, FREDIA GIBBS. I was doing a little bit of research on martial arts in the Olympic Games. Really fascinating stuff from a historic perspective. The ancient Olympics started in 776 BC. Now, wrestling was introduced as early as 708 BC. And boxing in 688 BC. In fact, believe it or not, there was a mixed martial art in the ancient Olympics, and it was called pancration. And it consisted of a combination of boxing and grappling. That was introduced in 648 BC. The majority of the ancient Olympic Games were actual combat sports. The modern Olympics started in 1896 with roughly 9 sports and around 43 events. It was hosted in Athens, Greece. And through modern times, the sporting events are constantly, it seems, in a state of flux with the modern Olympics, some being added, some being dropped. For example, most of the long-standing wrestling and grappling events are not planned to be included in the 2020 Olympics. There is a possibility that wushu will be considered. And of course, karate has been up for consideration for some time. Olympic boxing was included in ancient Greek Olympic Games in the latter stages, around the 7th century BC. In modern Olympics, it was introduced in the 1904 St. Louis, Missouri, USA Games. This was because the Athens Games had deemed boxing too dangerous. It's been at every Olympic Games with the exception of the 1912 Stockholm Games. And the reason for that is that boxing was not a legal sport in Sweden at that time. Head guards and pads were made compulsory in 1984, and an electronic scoring system was introduced in 1992. Female boxing was introduced at the London Olympic Games of 2012. Head guards were no longer compulsory for the male games at the Rio Olympics in 2016, as well as a change from the electronic scoring system to a 10-point traditional scoring system. Olympic judo was first introduced in 1964 at the Tokyo Games, and it's been included for all Olympic Games with the exception of 1968. Female Olympic judo was added in 1992, and it had a demonstration at the 1988 Olympic Games, so it took a little bit of time. Olympic Taekwondo was first introduced in the 2000 Games in Sydney. However, it was demonstrated as a demonstration sport in 1988 and in 1992. And of course, Olympic Taekwondo is governed by the World Taekwondo Federation, which was first founded in 1973. Strikes such as punches and kicks can be used in Taekwondo in the Olympics, although it is mostly dominated by kicking techniques. Olympic freestyle wrestling goes way, way back to 708 BC. And of course, wrestling's been documented as a sport in cave drawings that are dated back to 3000 BC or earlier. Now, freestyle wrestling was added to the modern Olympic Games in 1904, and it is different from Greco-Roman wrestling in that it allows the wrestlers to push with their legs and to be able to lift flip by tripping their opponent, and also to hold their opponents above or below the waist. Greco-Roman wrestling also goes back to 708 BC. However, it was introduced to the modern Olympics in 1896, and although it can be seen as being closely related to ancient times Greco-modern wrestling, there are some definite differences between that and freestyle. It differs from the Olympic form of freestyle in that you're not allowed to hold below the waist. You're not allowed to trip or hook an opponent. Instead, it mostly depends on throws, headlocks, body locks, and arm dragging is also quite common. Olympic fencing is considered a martial art, and it has been a standard part of the Olympic events ever since the 1896 Athens Olympics, which included both individual and team fencing. And of course, on August 3rd, 2016, the International Olympic Committee voted to add karate to the Olympic Games. Karate has been on the Pan American Games program since 1995. Over the years, it has featured both kata and kumite competitions. What has been proposed and accepted at the Olympics is individual kata categories, 10 male and 10 female. Individual kumite categories, 3 male categories and 3 female categories, each of 10 athletes, and a total of 80 athletes for the karate competition. Be sure to check us out at www.mawradio.com and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube by following Martial Arts World Radio. I'm Joseph Clark, and as always, thank you for listening.